Time for another TED Talk. Welcome back to day 4. So today, started off with the usual routine. You know by now what that entails. Ted did his usual going to the toilet once for toilet talk, if we go into that briefly. Didn't do his second one. We agreed yesterday, I didn't mention it on TED Talks yesterday, but after speaking to Guidedogs, we decided that what the foster family were doing with him was a bit too regular and we're changing it up a little bit. They were very keen on sort of getting him to do a toilet 45 minutes after he'd been to the toilet first, like first thing and then 45 minutes later. And they said it doesn't really work. It's a bit pointless if we're going to be trying him again just before we go out an hour later. So walk 1 was an hour long. It was a combination walk between the 2 that I did yesterday. So it was the walk I did yesterday morning, the longer walk in a built-up area with the crossings, roadworks, all of that sort of thing. And that was combined with the techniques I did yesterday afternoon where they just allowed me to step out, do my own thing, less input from the instructors. So although this was a relatively unknown route, they still prompted me on where I needed to go and just sort of let me get on with it, let me handle the turns and everything like that with Ted without giving me an initial prompt, which is what they were doing for the first couple of days. Give me a prompt, okay, you're going to do this and this and this. Now they've started to take a little bit of a step back and let me handle the turns because they know I can do them comfortably. So drama on this walk, Ted did a poo, which we didn't make a big thing about. It's not something that guide dogs are supposed to do on their walks, but considering it's a new change and he's going to be all uprooted last week anyway, we knew it was going to happen at some point, and he did. He started scooting his bum. He just stopped at various times. It was around twice. He just stopped, sat down and scooted his bum, and at that point we're like, okay, he's going to go in a minute. Kept him walking, which is what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to stop and then get them to do the toilet. So kept him going, and then eventually he stopped, did his business. We didn't pay him any mind. One of the instructors picked it up. And then he just cracked on. He wasn't really bothered at all. Just cracked on. Some dogs get a little bit, okay, I've done a poo, am I in trouble? He didn't care. He's like, okay, I feel better now, let's go. Which is great. Hopefully we won't have to do this going forwards, but this is just an exception to what would normally happen. One thing we did call him out for was he tried to cock his leg on a bush. And this is something that guide dogs don't like to happen because this was a very macho thing based on a situation that occurred. We stopped at a road and we were right by a car, and in the back there was a huge dog and it was just going mad, barking at Ted, banging into the window. So his response was, I'm going to cross the road, I'm going to go to this bush and I'm going to pee on it because I'm outside and you're stuck in the car. Ted was called out immediately on this because this isn't him needing to go for a pee. This is him just going, okay, this is my bush, you might have that car, and this is something that we don't want guide dogs to do. And we were on top of it, and he got told off for that, and he likely won't do it again, but it's something that I've just got to be aware of, that other dogs will set him off if they're being a bit aggressive. Then we had lunch. Ted had another nap. Walk number 2 this afternoon, we ended up doing a shorter walk. So this one was around 30 minutes long. So it wasn't a long walk, but this was a much more technical one. So we went to the local supermarket Lidl, not far from where I live, but there's a lot of roads, a lot of distractions. It can be quite busy with traffic, pedestrians, things on the street, so street furniture, signs. So although this wasn't a particularly long walk, it was more involved. So this had a lot more crossings in it, and with guide dogs you're supposed to stop at every road crossing, wait for the traffic, then you tell the dog to go. Common misconception is people think that dogs will just walk you across the road and they do all the work. You actually do the work. You tell them when to cross, and if there's a bus coming, they will stop you walking in front of the bus, but they won't tell you when to go. You have to decide that. So with lots of crossings, it's a lot of start and stop, and having to pay a lot of attention. It isn't a route I would normally do either. This isn't the way I would normally go to that shop, but that's something we're going to handle going forwards. We did this walk particularly because this is the one I did when I was paired with Ted. They chose the route that we were taking, and this was just a way of making sure that Ted was fairly familiar with it and it wasn't completely unknown, because they still want to have a little bit of familiarity for him. Went into the shop. Ted went straight for the Easter eggs to have a sniff. Nearly knocked them over. Big stack of them. He was really excited to go in there. Had to really rein him in on occasions because he was so excited about being in the shop. It's what guide dogs call a destination, and they want the dogs to get excited for destinations, whether it's a shop, a pub, your work, your home, because they get a lot of praise and treats. They're supposed to find these places. And he had been there before with guide dogs, so that he was familiar. So he was very excited, had to rein him in. Didn't do any work around the shop. I was just guided by one of the instructors. That's going to come later on, because handling a dog inside a shop is another thing altogether. There's a lot of distractions, a lot of things at their level, temptations, food, kids, things in the way. It's a very tricky thing in shops. You have to completely change the technique of what you're doing. So we didn't do that today. Coming back, lots of zebra crossings, obstacles, car parks we had to go around and all sorts of things. Really good. Ted worked really well. No issues at all. When we were coming back, the wind has been bad today because we're getting this storm in the UK. We've decided to have a bit of a torrential shower. So we all got soaked with really fast wind, and we all had to change basically when we got back. And Ted needed a big towel off. And that was the walk. We didn't do any inputs or anything like that at the end. I think that might be safe for tomorrow because the weather's supposed to be really bad tomorrow with this storm. So although I don't know what we're doing, I don't imagine we're going to be doing many walks or big walks, and it might be more focused on the theory of things. Maybe going into the shop and doing some of that training inside a shop and sort of driving to the location. Because in the UK, there's severe weather warnings in place now, so we're not going to take the risk of going out and doing a ridiculously long walk and then just getting soaked or being in a dangerous situation. The things I was working on throughout the week, they're still coming along really well. No issues. I'm getting used to the idea of giving food, getting a little bit more comfortable with that, so giving food for his treats. Still taking some getting used to. He is sort of expecting it here and there. I got into a little bit of a pattern at one point where it was every other time I was giving him something, and then it was like, okay, maybe not every other time because he's smart enough to figure that out, so then it was a little bit more sporadic. So that's something I will have to work on, and it's always in the back of the mind. But overall, good day. Had to change my clothes again because of the rain, but I look forward to tomorrow, see what's going to happen. Should be a completely different day, just on the run down to the weekend, and I should have some interesting things to let you know about. So until tomorrow, see ya. For more updates, videos and photos, join us on Instagram at Wes and Ted's Excellent Adventures.